The garage was quiet except for the steady drip of oil from my truck's undercarriage. Midnight in Millbrook meant the world had finally shut its mouth, giving a man space to think. I was elbow deep in engine grease when my phone buzzed against the workbench. The text was from Beth, my wife of 18 years. I want an open marriage. This isn't negotiable. I stared at those words for a long moment, wiping my hands on an old rag. The fluorescent light above flickered, casting shadows across the concrete floor. 18 years, 2 daughters, a house we'd built together, a business I'd grown from nothing. Understood, I typed back. But I wasn't understanding anything yet. Not really. Beth was in Los Angeles on another one of her corporate retreats, the kind that had become more frequent since she'd landed that management position at Hartwell Industries, the kind that kept her away from our daughter's basketball games and family dinners. I walked through our house, my house technically, since I'd built it with my own hands, and my electrical contracting business had paid for every board and nail. The silence felt different now, heavier. Family photos lined the hallway, but they looked like artifacts from someone else's life. Beth's smile seemed forced in every single one. The girls were staying at my mother's house for the week, something about giving their mother space to find herself. At the time, I'd thought it was just another phase. Beth had been restless lately, talking about missed opportunities and wanting more from life. Now I understood what she'd been wanting. I made coffee and sat at the kitchen table, staring out at our backyard. The swing set I'd built for Becca and Brittany when they were little stood empty, chains swaying slightly in the night breeze. Everything looked the same, but something fundamental had shifted. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Beth. We need to talk when I get back. This is about growth, James, about being honest with ourselves. Growth. Honesty. The corporate buzzwords she'd been throwing around for months suddenly made sense. I'd been married to a stranger, and I was apparently the last person to figure it out. I spent the rest of that night in my office, going through our joint accounts, credit card statements, phone records. Call it paranoia or call it due diligence. But 18 years of marriage had taught me that Beth never did anything halfway. If she wanted an open marriage, she'd already opened it. The evidence was right there in black and white. Hotel charges in cities where she'd claimed to be attending conferences, restaurant bills for 2 when she was supposedly dining alone, phone calls to a number I recognized, my brother John's cell. John, my younger brother, the golden boy who'd never quite lived up to his potential, the charming one who'd borrowed money he never paid back, who'd crashed on our couch more times than I could count, who'd always looked at Beth a little too long during family gatherings. I leaned back in my chair, pieces clicking into place like a puzzle I'd been trying to solve for months. Beth's sudden interest in her appearance, the new clothes, the gym membership, the way she'd started working late on nights when John happened to be in town. The coffee had gone cold, but I didn't care. I was wide awake now, more alert than I'd been in years. My phone showed dozens of text messages between Beth and John going back 6 months. Nothing explicitly romantic, but the subtext was clear to anyone who knew how to read between the lines. Can't wait to see you again? James doesn't understand me like you do. This feels so right. I saved screenshots of everything, then deleted the message thread from Beth's cloud backup. If she wanted to play games, she'd have to do it without her safety net. The sun was coming up by the time I finished my research. I showered, put on my work clothes, and headed to the shop. My crew would be there by 7, and I had a full day of electrical work ahead of me. But first, I had a stop to make. The Millbrook diner was already busy with the breakfast crowd when I walked in. Small towns run on gossip and coffee, and both were flowing freely. I nodded to familiar faces and took a seat at the counter. Morning, James, said Rita, the waitress who'd been serving coffee here since before I was born. You're up early. Couldn't sleep, I said, which was true enough. Coffee and wheat toast, please. She poured the coffee without being asked. Beth still out of town? Los Angeles, I said. Business trip. Rita nodded knowingly. That corporate life keeps folks busy. Your girl's doing okay. They're with Mom this week. Gives Beth some space to focus on work. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, comment, and hit that hype button to boost this channel so more people can discover these incredible Reddit stories. The conversation was innocent enough, but I could see Rita filing away the information. By noon, half the town would know that James Morrison's wife was traveling again, leaving him alone with his thoughts and his work. I finished my coffee and headed to Morrison Electric, the business I'd built from a one-man operation to a crew of 8. We specialized in residential and commercial electrical work. Nothing glamorous, but steady and profitable. The kind of business that kept a small town running. My foreman, Pete, was already there, reviewing the day's schedule. Morning, boss. We've got the Henderson rewiring job and that new construction project on Maple Street. Sounds good, I said. I'll take the Henderson job myself. You handle the crew on Maple. Pete gave me a look. You sure? That's a big job for one person. I need to keep busy today, I said. Besides, Mrs. Henderson specifically requested me. That was true. Eleanor Henderson was 83 and didn't trust anyone under 60 with her electrical system. I'd been maintaining her house for 15 years, ever since I'd started the business. The Henderson job took most of the day, which was exactly what I needed. Physical work, problem solving, the satisfaction of fixing something that was broken. By the time I finished, I felt more like myself than I had in months. I was packing up my tools when my phone rang. Beth's name appeared on the screen. Hi, I said. James, we need to talk about my message last night. I know it was sudden, but when are you coming home? Tomorrow evening. But listen, this doesn't have to be a bad thing. Lots of couples are exploring alternative arrangements these days. It's about honesty and... I'll pick you up at the airport, I interrupted. James, are you listening to me? This is important. I heard you. Open marriage, growth, honesty. I understand perfectly. There was a pause. You sound angry. I'm not angry, Beth. I'm just processing. We can work through this together, as a family. Family. The word tasted bitter now. Sure, we'll talk when you get home. After she hung up, I sat in Mrs. Henderson's driveway for a long time, watching the sun set over Millbrook. This was my town, my life, my world. I'd built something here, a business, a reputation, a family. Now it was time to find out what was worth saving and what needed to be torn down and rebuilt from scratch. I drove home through streets I'd known my entire life, past houses where I'd done electrical work, past the high school where I'd met Beth, past the church where we'd gotten married. Everything looked the same, but I was seeing it all with different eyes now. The house felt even emptier than it had the night before. I made a sandwich and ate it standing at the kitchen counter, then went to my office and started making lists. Assets, accounts, property, investments. Everything Beth and I owned together. Everything we'd built as a team. If she wanted honesty, she was going to get more than she'd bargained for. Beth's flight landed at 7:30 on a Tuesday evening. I was waiting at baggage claim, watching her walk toward me with that confident stride she'd developed since taking the corporate job. She looked good. Better than she had in years, actually. New haircut, expensive clothes, the kind of polished appearance that came from having something to prove. Hi, she said, kissing my cheek like we were acquaintances. How was Los Angeles? Productive. Very productive. She grabbed her suitcase from the carousel. James, about what we discussed. Let's talk at home, I said. The girls are expecting you. The drive back to Millbrook was awkward. Beth kept starting conversations about her trip, her work, her plans for the future, but everything felt scripted, like she'd rehearsed this performance. I've been doing a lot of thinking, she said as we pulled into our driveway. About us, about what we want from life. We're both still young enough to explore new possibilities. 42 isn't exactly young, Beth. That's what I mean. We can't waste any more time pretending to be something we're not. I parked the truck and looked at her. What exactly are we pretending to be? Happy, she said without hesitation. When was the last time we were really happy together? It was a fair question, and I didn't have a good answer. We'd been coasting for years, going through the motions of marriage while growing further apart. But I'd always assumed that was normal, the natural evolution of a long-term relationship. The girls were waiting in the living room, homework spread across the coffee table. Becca, our 17-year-old, barely looked up from her textbook. Brittany, 15, launched herself at Beth like she hadn't seen her in months. How was Grandma's? Beth asked. Boring, Becca said. She made us watch old movies and eat vegetables. It builds character, I said, settling into my recliner. Your grandmother raised 5 kids without cable TV or video games. Different times, Beth said, and something in her tone suggested she wasn't just talking about television. We went through the routine of family dinner, homework help, bedtime stories for Brittany, who still liked them, even though she claimed to be too old. Normal family stuff, except nothing felt normal anymore. After the girls went to bed, Beth poured herself a glass of wine and sat across from me at the kitchen table. So, she said, let's talk. I'm listening. I know this is difficult to hear, but I've been thinking about this for a long time. We've grown apart, James. We want different things. What do you want? She took a sip of wine, gathering her thoughts. I want to feel alive again. I want passion, excitement, the feeling that anything is possible. I want to be with someone who sees me as more than just a wife and mother. Someone like John? The wine glass stopped halfway to her lips. What? My brother John, the someone who sees you as more than just a wife and mother. Beth's face went pale, then flushed red. I don't know what you're implying. I'm not implying anything. I'm stating facts. I pulled out my phone and showed her one of the screenshots I'd saved. Hotel bill from Chicago, 2 guests, 1 room, the same weekend you were supposedly at a marketing conference. She stared at the screen, then looked up at me. You've been spying on me? I've been paying attention. There's a difference. James, I can explain. Can you? Because I've got about 6 months' worth of evidence that suggests you and my brother have been having an affair. Phone records, credit card statements, hotel receipts. Should I keep going? Beth set down her wine glass with shaking hands. It's not what you think. Really? What is it then? It's complicated. Complicated. I laughed, but there was no humor in it. You're sleeping with my brother, and you call it complicated. We didn't plan for this to happen. It just developed naturally. How long? James, how long have you been screwing my brother? She flinched at my tone. 6 months, maybe 7. And you thought the best way to handle this was to ask for an open marriage. I thought we could work something out, like adults. Adults! I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our backyard. Adults don't sneak around behind their spouse's back for 7 months. Adults don't have affairs with their husband's brother. I know how this looks. Do you? Because from where I'm standing, it looks like you've been planning this for a while. The corporate job, the business trips, the sudden interest in personal growth. You've been building an exit strategy. Beth was crying now, but I felt no sympathy. I never meant for it to happen this way. But it did happen. And now you want me to just accept it? Smile and pretend everything's fine while you continue your relationship with John? I want us to be honest with each other, for the first time in years. I turned to face her. Okay, let's be honest. I know about the affair. I know about the hotel rooms and the secret phone calls and the lies you've been telling our daughters. I know John's been coming around when I'm at work, and I know you've been using our joint credit card to pay for your romantic getaways. James, please. I'm not finished. I also know that you've been telling people we're having marriage problems. Rita at the diner, your sister, probably half the women in your book club. You've been setting the stage for this conversation for months. Beth wiped her eyes with a napkin. What do you want me to say? I want you to tell me the truth, all of it. She took a shaky breath. I love him. You love John? Yes. My brother John, the one who's been unemployed for 3 years. The one who borrowed $5,000 from us last Christmas and never paid it back. The one who's been sleeping in his car because he can't make rent. He's going through a difficult time. He's a loser, Beth. A charming, manipulative loser who's been living off other people his entire life. Don't talk about him that way. I'll talk about him however I want. He's my brother, and I know exactly what he is. Beth stood up, her composure cracking. You don't understand what it's like being married to you. You're so predictable, so safe. John makes me feel things I haven't felt in years. What kind of things? Excitement, passion, like I'm 25 again. You're not 25, Beth. You're a 42-year-old mother of 2 with a mortgage and responsibilities. That's exactly what I'm talking about. You see me as a collection of obligations. John sees me as a woman. I walked back to the table and sat down across from her. So what happens now? I don't know. I was hoping we could figure it out together. Together? I almost laughed. You mean the 3 of us? You, me, and John? I mean like mature adults who care about each other. I cared about you for 18 years, Beth. I built this house for you. I worked 60-hour weeks to give you the life you wanted. I coached our daughters' softball teams and never missed a school play and put your needs ahead of mine every single day. I know. And you repaid that by having an affair with my brother. It wasn't supposed to happen. But it did. And now you want me to just accept it. To share you with John like we're all part of some enlightened arrangement? Beth looked down at her hands. I don't know what I want anymore. Well, I know what I want, I said. I want you to pack a bag and get out of my house. Her head snapped up. James, you can't be serious. I'm completely serious. You want honesty? Here it is. I don't want to be married to someone who's been lying to me for 7 months. I don't want to share my wife with my brother. And I sure as hell don't want my daughters thinking this is what a normal marriage looks like. Where am I supposed to go? I don't care. Stay with John, get a hotel room, figure it out like the mature adult you claim to be. What about the girls? The girls will be fine. They'll stay here with me, in their home, maintaining some semblance of stability while their mother works through her midlife crisis. Beth was crying again, but this time it looked real instead of calculated. This isn't how I wanted things to go. How did you want them to go, Beth? What was your plan here? I thought maybe we could work something out. Something that involved me accepting your affair and pretending everything was fine? I thought you might understand. I stood up and walked to the kitchen counter, needing distance between us. I understand perfectly. You're bored with your life, so you decided to blow it up. You started an affair with my brother because he represents everything I'm not. Irresponsible, unpredictable, dangerous. And now you want me to give you permission to continue. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. You made your choice. Now live with the consequences. Beth wiped her eyes and stood up. I'll pack some things. Good. James, I hope someday you can forgive me. I looked at her, really looked at her, for what felt like the first time in years. She was still beautiful, still the woman I'd fallen in love with in high school. But she was also a stranger now, someone who'd been living a double life while I'd been working to hold our family together. Maybe I will, I said, but not today. She went upstairs to pack, and I sat alone in the kitchen, listening to her moving around in our bedroom. 20 minutes later, she came back down with a suitcase and her laptop bag. I'll call the girls tomorrow, she said. They're going to have questions. I know. We'll figure out what to tell them. We'll tell them the truth, that their mother decided she wanted something different. Beth paused at the door. This doesn't have to be the end, James. People work through these things. Some people do, I said, but those people don't have affairs with their husband's brother. After she left, I sat in the quiet house, processing what had just happened. 18 years of marriage, over in one conversation. 2 daughters who would wake up tomorrow to find their mother gone. A brother who had betrayed me in the worst possible way. But I wasn't angry. Not yet. I was something else entirely. Focused, determined, clear-headed for the first time in months. Beth wanted honesty. She was going to get more honesty than she could handle. I spent the next hour making phone calls, sending emails, and updating passwords. By the time I went to bed, Beth no longer had access to our joint bank accounts, credit cards, or any of the financial resources she'd been using to fund her affair. If she wanted to start a new life with John, she could do it on her own dime. The girls took the news about as well as could be expected. Becca, our 17-year-old, nodded like she'd been waiting for this conversation her entire life. Brittany cried and asked if it was her fault, which nearly broke my heart. This has nothing to do with you girls, I told them over breakfast. Your mother and I have some things to work out, but that doesn't change how much we both love you. Is she coming back? Brittany asked. I don't know, sweetheart. We're taking things one day at a time. Becca pushed eggs around on her plate without eating. Is this about Uncle John? I looked at her sharply. What do you mean? I'm not stupid, Dad. I've seen the way they look at each other, and he's been coming around a lot when you're at work. What do you mean, coming around? Like, hanging out, helping Mom with stuff, acting weird. Brittany looked confused. What's wrong with Uncle John helping? Becca gave her younger sister a look that suggested she knew more than she was saying. Nothing, Britt. Forget it. After the girls left for school, I called my mother. James, is everything all right? Beth and I are having some problems, Mom. She's staying somewhere else for a while. There was a long pause. I see. And the girls? They're with me. They're handling it okay, considering. Do you want to talk about it? My mother was 73 years old and had been through her own share of marriage troubles. My father had left when I was 12, and she'd raised 3 boys on her own while working 2 jobs. If anyone would understand, it would be her. Beth's been having an affair, I said. With John. Another pause, longer this time. Oh, James. You're not surprised. I wondered. The way she looked at him during Christmas dinner, the way he... Well, John's always been trouble where women are concerned. Why didn't you say anything? What was I supposed to say? I think your wife is having an affair with your brother. You would have thought I was a meddling old woman. I would have listened. Would you? Or would you have defended her and stopped speaking to me? She had a point. I'd always been protective of Beth, always given her the benefit of the doubt, even when the evidence was right in front of me. What are you going to do? Mom asked. I don't know yet, but I'm not going to just roll over and let them destroy what I've built. Be careful, son. Revenge has a way of hurting the wrong people. After I hung up, I drove to the shop and tried to focus on work, but my mind kept wandering to Beth and John, to the lies and betrayal, to the way they'd been sneaking around behind my back for 7 months. Pete noticed my distraction around noon. "Boss, you okay? You've been staring at that circuit breaker for 10 minutes. "Just thinking. About Beth?" I looked at him. "What do you know about Beth?" "Nothing specific, but Rita mentioned she's been traveling a lot, and your brother's been seen around town more often. People talk. People talk. In a town like Millbrook, that was both a blessing and a curse. Nothing stayed secret for long, but that also meant rumors could spread faster than facts." "What are people saying?" Pete looked uncomfortable. "Maybe you should ask someone else." "I'm asking you." He sighed. "Some folks think maybe Beth's gotten too big for her britches since she got that corporate job. Others think John's been sniffing around where he shouldn't be. But mostly people just feel bad for you." "They feel bad for me." "You're a good man, James. You've done right by this town, helped a lot of people. Nobody wants to see you get hurt." The sympathy was almost worse than the gossip. I didn't want to be the object of anyone's pity. I was finishing up a service call at the bank when Candace Williams approached me. Candace was Beth's best friend, had been since high school. She was also one of the biggest gossips in town, which made her both a valuable source of information and a dangerous enemy. "James, I heard about you and Beth. I'm so sorry. News travels fast. Is there anything I can do? I know this must be difficult." There was something in her tone that made me suspicious. Candace had never particularly liked me, had always thought Beth could do better. I wondered how much she knew about the affair, how long she'd been keeping Beth's secrets. "I'm managing," I said. "If you need someone to talk to, someone who knows Beth really well." "Thanks, but I think I've heard enough about Beth for one day." Candace looked hurt. "I'm just trying to help." "Are you? Or are you fishing for information to report back to Beth? That's not fair, isn't it? You've been her best friend for 25 years. You expect me to believe you didn't know about John?" Candace's face went red. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Sure you don't." I finished my work and left, but the conversation stuck with me. If Candace knew about the affair, and I was certain she did, then Beth had been discussing it with other people, maybe even asking for advice on how to handle the situation. That evening, I was helping Brittany with her math homework when my phone rang. John's name appeared on the screen. "Hello, John." "James, we need to talk." "Do we?" "This whole situation is messed up, man. I never meant for things to go this far." "How far did you mean for them to go?" There was a pause. "Can we meet somewhere? Face to face?" "Why?" "Because we're brothers. Because this family doesn't need to be torn apart over a misunderstanding." "A misunderstanding?" I looked at Brittany, who was pretending to focus on her homework while obviously listening to every word. "Hold on." I walked into the kitchen and closed the door. "Okay, John, explain the misunderstanding." "Beth was lonely, man. You were always working, always focused on the business. She needed someone to talk to." "So you talked her into bed?" "It wasn't like that." "What was it like?" "It just happened. We were both going through rough patches and we connected. It wasn't planned. But it continued for 7 months. We tried to stop, multiple times. But there's something between us, something real." I gripped the phone tighter. "Something real." "I know you're angry." "I'm not angry, John. I'm disappointed. I thought my brother was better than this." "I am better than this. That's why I'm calling. That's why I want to fix things." "How do you propose to fix things?" "I don't know. Maybe we can work something out, like Beth suggested. People have unconventional arrangements all the time." "Unconventional arrangements." I know it sounds crazy, but maybe there's a way for everyone to be happy. I almost laughed. "You think I'm going to share my wife with you?" "I think you love Beth enough to want her to be happy." "I did love Beth, past tense, but I don't love liars and cheaters." "James, let me ask you something, John. Where are you calling from?" "What do you mean?" "Are you at Beth's hotel room? Are you lying in bed with my wife while you're asking me to be understanding about your affair?" Silence. "That's what I thought. You want to fix things? Stay away from my family. Stay away from my wife. Stay away from my daughters, and stay the hell away from me." "You don't mean that." "I've never meant anything more in my life." I hung up and stood in the kitchen, shaking with rage. The audacity of it, calling me while he was with Beth, asking me to accept their relationship, suggesting we could all be happy together. My phone buzzed with a text from John. "I'm sorry it has to be this way." I deleted the message without responding. Brittany appeared in the kitchen doorway. "Dad, are you okay?" I forced a smile. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just some business stuff." "Was that Uncle John?" "Yes." "Is he coming to dinner this weekend?" John had been a regular at our family dinners for years, showing up whenever he needed a free meal or wanted to borrow money. The girls adored him, thought he was the fun uncle who brought them presents and told them jokes. "Not this weekend," I said. "Uncle John's going to be busy for a while." That night, after the girls went to bed, I sat in my office and made more phone calls. I called our lawyer, our accountant, and our insurance agent. I wanted to understand exactly what I was dealing with, what Beth was entitled to, what rights I had. The picture that emerged wasn't pretty. 18 years of marriage meant Beth was entitled to half of everything we owned: the house, the business, our savings, our retirement accounts. She could demand spousal support, especially given her recent employment history and the disparity in our incomes. But there were also things working in my favor. The affair, for one. Indiana wasn't a no-fault divorce state, which meant adultery could affect property division and support payments. The fact that she'd been using marital assets to fund the affair was another point in my favor. Most importantly, I had documentation: screenshots, credit card statements, hotel receipts, evidence that would be very difficult for Beth to explain away. I was still researching when my phone rang again. This time, it was Beth. "James, we need to talk about the girls." "What about them?" "They need stability right now. They need both their parents." "They have stability. They're in their home with their father, maintaining their normal routines. They need their mother too. Their mother is the one who chose to leave." "I didn't choose to leave. You threw me out." "I gave you a choice. End the affair or leave. You chose to leave." "I needed time to think." "You've had 7 months to think, Beth. How much more time do you need?" "This is complicated." "No, it's simple. You're having an affair with my brother. Either end it and come home or stay gone, but you don't get to have both. The girls miss me. Then come home." "Without John?" "Without John." There was a long pause. "I can't do that." "Then you've made your choice." "James, please." "I have to go, Beth. The girls have school tomorrow, and I need to help them with their homework." "Can I at least see them?" "Of course. You're their mother, but it'll be on my terms, in my house, when it's convenient for our family." "Your family? I'm part of this family, too." "Are you? Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like you've started a new family with John." After she hung up, I poured myself a drink and sat on the back porch, looking out at the yard where my daughters had grown up. The swing set, the garden Beth had planted, the fire pit where we'd roasted marshmallows on summer evenings. All of it felt like ancient history now. Word spread through Millbrook like wildfire. By the end of the week, everyone knew that James Morrison's wife had left him for his brother. The looks I got at the grocery store ranged from sympathetic to curious to outright pitying. I hated every single one of them. Rita at the diner started giving me extra coffee and asking pointed questions about how I was holding up. The guys at the hardware store offered unsolicited advice about divorce lawyers and property division. Even the mailman felt compelled to share his opinion about women who don't know a good thing when they have it. The attention was suffocating, but it also gave me an idea. If everyone was going to talk about my business anyway, I might as well control the narrative. I started with small things. When Rita asked how I was doing, I mentioned that Beth had been distant for months, traveling constantly for work, leaving me to handle everything at home. When the guys at the hardware store offered advice, I shared that I'd discovered financial irregularities in our joint accounts. I never lied, exactly. I just emphasized certain truths while omitting others. The effect was immediate. Within days, the story had evolved from "poor James got left by his wife" to "Beth Morrison was living a double life while her husband worked to support the family." Meanwhile, I was methodically documenting everything. Every text message, every phone call, every piece of evidence that proved Beth and John's affair. I hired a private investigator to follow them, to photograph them together, to create an undeniable record of their relationship. The pictures arrived by email on a Thursday morning. Beth and John entering a hotel together, Beth and John having dinner at a restaurant 40 miles outside of town, Beth and John kissing in the parking lot of a shopping mall. Looking at those images should have hurt more than it did. Instead, I felt a cold satisfaction. Evidence. Proof. Ammunition for the war that was coming. Because make no mistake, this was war. Beth called that evening while I was helping Becca with her college applications. "I want to see the girls this weekend," she said without preamble. "Fine. Saturday afternoon, 2 to 6. I was thinking they could stay overnight." "No." "James, be reasonable." "I am being reasonable. You can see them here, in their home, for 4 hours. That's more than generous, considering the circumstances." "What circumstances?" "The affair, Beth. The lies. The fact that you abandoned your family for my brother." "I didn't abandon anyone." "Didn't you?" When was the last time you attended one of Brittany's basketball games? When was the last time you helped Becca with her homework? You've been checked out of this family for months. I was working. You were having an affair. There was a long pause. I want to bring John with me. Absolutely not. He's part of my life now. He's not part of their lives, and he never will be as long as I have anything to say about it. You can't keep me from seeing my daughters. I'm not keeping you from seeing them. I'm keeping my brother from corrupting them further. John loves those girls. John loves the idea of playing house with my wife and my children. There's a difference. You're being cruel. I'm being protective. There's a difference. Saturday afternoon arrived with unseasonable warmth for October. Beth showed up alone, dressed in clothes I'd never seen before. Expensive, stylish, the kind of outfit that suggested she was doing well financially despite not having access to our joint accounts. The girls were excited to see her, especially Brittany, who threw herself into Beth's arms like she'd been gone for months instead of a week. I missed you so much, Mom. I missed you too, baby. Becca was more reserved, hanging back and watching the reunion with careful eyes. She'd inherited my suspicious nature, my tendency to observe before acting. How are you girls doing? Beth asked. Are you taking care of your father? Dad's taking care of us, Becca said. He's been cooking dinner every night and helping with homework and driving us to practice. That's wonderful. Your father's always been good at taking care of people. There was something in her tone that irritated me, a suggestion that I was merely adequate, a caretaker rather than a parent. We're managing fine, I said. The girls are resilient. Beth looked around the living room, taking in the family photos, the girls' school projects on the refrigerator, the normalcy of our daily life. This feels strange, she said, being a visitor in my own home. It's not your home anymore, Becca said quietly. Beth looked stunned. Becca, you left Mom. You chose to leave. It's complicated, sweetheart. No, it's not. Dad explained everything. You're with Uncle John now. Beth shot me a furious look. What exactly did you tell them? The truth, that you're having an affair with my brother. In front of the children? They're not children, Beth. They're 17 and 15. They're old enough to understand what's happening to their family. Brittany looked confused. What's an affair? Becca sighed. It means Mom has a boyfriend. But Dad's her boyfriend. Dad's her husband, or was. It's different. I watched Beth struggle to explain herself to our daughters, watched her try to justify the unjustifiable. She talked about growing apart and finding happiness and adult relationships, but the girls weren't buying it. So you're getting divorced? Brittany asked. We're figuring things out, Beth said. Are you going to marry Uncle John? Becca asked. I don't know what's going to happen. But you love him more than Dad. It's not about loving someone more. It is, though, Becca interrupted. You chose him over us. I didn't choose him over you. I would never choose anyone over you girls. But you did, Brittany said, tears starting to flow. You left us for Uncle John. Beth looked at me helplessly. James, help me here. Help you what? Explain to our daughters why their mother abandoned them for their uncle. I think you're on your own with that one. The visit went downhill from there. Beth tried to engage the girls in normal conversation, school, friends, activities, but everything felt forced and artificial. The easy relationship she'd once had with them was gone, replaced by awkwardness and hurt feelings. When 6 o'clock arrived, both girls hugged their mother goodbye, but the embraces were brief and perfunctory. When will I see you again? Beth asked. Next weekend, I said. Same time, same conditions. This isn't sustainable, James. The girls need more than 4 hours a week with their mother. The girls need their mother to make better choices. After Beth left, I found Becca in her room, staring at her phone. You okay, kiddo? I'm fine. You don't seem fine. She looked up at me. Why did she do it, Dad? Why did she choose Uncle John over us? It was a question I'd been asking myself for weeks. I don't know, Becca. Sometimes people make choices that don't make sense to the rest of us. Do you think she'll come back? I don't know that either. Do you want her to come back? I sat on the edge of her bed, considering the question. 2 weeks ago, I would have said yes without hesitation. Now, after seeing how easily she'd walked away from our family, after watching her struggle to connect with her own daughters, I wasn't sure. I want what's best for you and your sister, I said finally. Everything else is secondary. That's not an answer. It's the only answer I have right now. That night, after the girls went to bed, I sat in my office and reviewed the private investigator's latest report. Beth and John were living together in a rented apartment across town, splitting expenses, playing house like teenagers. They went out to dinner, attended movies, acted like a normal couple, except for the small detail that Beth was still married to someone else. The investigator had also uncovered something interesting. John had applied for several jobs in other cities: Chicago, Indianapolis, even Nashville. He was planning to leave Millbrook, and presumably he wanted Beth to go with him. That changed everything. If Beth left town, custody arrangements would become much more complicated. The girls would be forced to choose between staying in their hometown with their father or following their mother to a new city where they knew no one. I couldn't let that happen. I picked up the phone and called my lawyer. "Tom, it's James Morrison. I need to file for divorce, and I need to do it fast." The divorce papers were served on a Monday morning at Beth's new apartment. I wasn't there to see her reaction, but John called me within an hour, screaming about harassment and legal intimidation. "You can't do this, James. You can't just destroy people's lives because you're angry." "I'm not destroying anything," I said calmly. "I'm protecting my interests and my daughter's interests." Beth is devastated. Beth should have thought about that before she started sleeping with my brother. "We're in love. You're in lust. There's a difference. You don't know what you're talking about." "I know exactly what I'm talking about. I also know you've been applying for jobs in other cities, planning to take my wife and maybe my daughters away from everything they've ever known." There was silence on the other end of the line. "That's right, John. I know about Chicago, Indianapolis, Nashville. Did you really think you could sneak out of town without me finding out? We haven't made any decisions. You've made plenty of decisions. You decided to have an affair with my wife. You decided to break up my family. You decided to plan a future that doesn't include me or my daughter's stability. The girls could come with us. Over my cold, lifeless body." I hung up before he could respond. The legal process moved quickly once it started. My lawyer, Tom Bradley, had been handling family law in Millbrook for 30 years. He'd seen every kind of divorce, every kind of custody battle, every kind of financial dispute. "You've got a strong case," he told me during our second meeting. "The affair is well documented. She used marital assets to fund the relationship, and she abandoned the family home. Any reasonable judge will see this for what it is." "What about custody?" "With her current living situation and the instability she's created, I think we can get primary custody with supervised visitation, especially if she's planning to leave the state." "And financially?" "She'll get something. It's an 18-year marriage, after all, but given the circumstances, it won't be half of everything. Maybe 30%, possibly less." That was better than I'd hoped for. The real battle began when Beth hired her own lawyer, a sharp woman from Indianapolis who specialized in representing wives in high-asset divorces. Suddenly, Beth was claiming that I'd been emotionally abusive, that I'd controlled the finances, that I'd driven her into John's arms through years of neglect. It was a predictable strategy, but it still stung to see our marriage rewritten as a tale of oppression and escape. The girls were caught in the middle, forced to answer questions about their home life, their relationships with both parents, their preferences for custody arrangements. Becca handled it with typical teenage stoicism, but Brittany struggled with the pressure. "I don't want to choose," she told me one evening after a particularly difficult session with the court-appointed counselor. "Why can't things just go back to the way they were?" "Because your mother made choices that can't be undone," I said. "But whatever happens, you and Becca will be okay. I promise you that." "What if the judge says we have to live with Mom and Uncle John?" "That's not going to happen." "How do you know?" "Because I won't let it happen." It was a promise I intended to keep, no matter what it cost me. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Candace Williams, Beth's supposed best friend, called me on a Thursday evening in November. "James, it's Candace. I need to talk to you." "About what?" "About Beth. About what really happened." We met at a coffee shop in the next town over, somewhere we wouldn't be seen by anyone who knew us. Candace looked nervous, fidgeting with her purse and avoiding eye contact. This is difficult for me," she said. "Beth's been my friend for 25 years. But I can't watch her destroy those girls' lives for a man like John." "What do you mean?" Candace took a deep breath. "Beth didn't just fall into this affair, James. She planned it. She's been unhappy for years, talking about leaving you, talking about wanting a different life. When John started coming around more often, she saw an opportunity." "An opportunity for what?" "To create a crisis that would force your hand. She thought if she had an affair, you'd fight for her, maybe change, become more exciting." "That's insane." "That's Beth. She's always been dramatic, always needed to be the center of attention. But when you didn't react the way she expected, when you just accepted it and asked her to leave, she panicked. So she doubled down. Exactly. And now she's in too deep to back out. She's told everyone that you were a terrible husband, that John is her soulmate, that she's finally found true happiness. She can't admit it was all a mistake without looking like a fool. What about John? Candace laughed bitterly. John's an opportunist. He saw a chance to live rent-free with a woman who has a steady income, and he took it. But he's already getting restless. I've seen him with other women, James. He's not as committed to this relationship as Beth thinks he is. Why are you telling me this? Because those girls deserve better. Because you deserve better. And because Beth is about to make a mistake that will ruin all of your lives. What kind of mistake? She's pregnant. The words hit me like a physical blow. What? She's 10 weeks along. She hasn't told John yet. Hasn't told anyone except me. She's planning to use the pregnancy to force John to marry her, to prove to everyone that their relationship is real and lasting. I stared at Candace, trying to process this information. Are you sure? I went with her to the doctor. I've seen the ultrasound. Is it John's? She says it is. The timing works out. A baby. Beth was having John's baby, which would complicate everything. Custody, support, the girls' relationship with their mother. It would tie her to John permanently, create a new family that excluded me and my daughters. Why are you telling me this? I asked again. Because I think you have a right to know, and because I think Beth is making a terrible mistake that's going to hurt everyone, including the baby. What do you want me to do with this information? I don't know, but I thought you should have all the facts before the custody hearing next month. After Candace left, I sat in the coffee shop for another hour, thinking through the implications. Beth's pregnancy changed everything, but it also gave me leverage I hadn't had before. If she was planning to use the baby to manipulate John into marriage, she was more desperate than I'd realized, and desperate people made mistakes. I called Tom Bradley and scheduled an emergency meeting for the next morning. This complicates things, he said after I'd explained the situation. But it might also work in our favor. How? A pregnant woman living with her lover in an unstable relationship isn't exactly the picture of maternal fitness, especially when that lover is the father's brother and a known deadbeat. What do you recommend? We push for immediate resolution of the custody issue. We argue that the children need stability and that Beth's current situation is anything but stable. We emphasize that she abandoned the family home to pursue an affair and is now pregnant with her lover's child. And if she claims the baby isn't John's? Then we demand a paternity test. Either way, it proves she was having unprotected relations with someone other than her husband while still married. It was brutal, but it was also necessary. Beth had chosen this path, and now she would have to live with the consequences. The custody hearing was scheduled for the first week of December. As the date approached, I found myself strangely calm, focused on the task ahead. I documented everything, prepared for every possible argument, anticipated every move Beth's lawyer might make. The night before the hearing, I sat in my office reviewing my testimony one final time. Becca knocked on the door. Dad, can I talk to you? Of course. What's on your mind? Tomorrow's the big day, right? The custody thing? Right. Are you nervous? A little, but I'm confident we'll get the right outcome. She sat in the chair across from my desk, looking older than her 17 years. I want to testify. Becca, I know you don't want me involved, but I want to tell the judge what it's been like. How Mom left us, how Uncle John ruined our family, how you've been taking care of everything. You don't need to do that. Yes, I do. This is my family too, and I want to fight for it. Looking at my daughter in that moment, I felt a surge of pride and gratitude. She was strong, determined, willing to stand up for what was right even when it was difficult. Okay, I said. If that's what you want, we'll make it happen. And Dad, whatever happens tomorrow, I want you to know that you've been a great father. Better than great. You've been everything we needed. Thank you, sweetheart. That means more to me than you know. The next morning, I woke up early and made breakfast for the girls, helped them get ready for school, kissed them goodbye like it was any other day. Then I put on my best suit, grabbed my briefcase full of evidence, and headed to the courthouse. It was time to finish what Beth had started. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, with fluorescent lighting that made everyone look pale and tired. Beth sat at the plaintiff's table with her lawyer, wearing a conservative blue dress that I'd never seen before. She looked nervous, fidgeting with her wedding ring, the ring she was still wearing despite everything. John wasn't there, which surprised me until I realized that his presence would only hurt Beth's case. Judge Margaret Harrison was in her 60s, with gray hair and sharp eyes that suggested she'd heard every sob story and excuse in the book. She reviewed the case file while both lawyers made their opening statements. Beth's lawyer painted a picture of an oppressed wife who'd finally found the courage to leave an emotionally distant husband. She talked about my controlling behavior and financial manipulation, my tendency to prioritize work over family, my refusal to acknowledge Beth's needs as an individual. It was a compelling narrative, and if I hadn't lived through the actual events, I might have been convinced. Tom Bradley's opening was more straightforward. Beth had abandoned her family to pursue an affair with her husband's brother, using marital assets to fund the relationship while neglecting her responsibilities as a mother. She was now pregnant with her lover's child and planning to leave the state, which would further destabilize the children's lives. "Your Honor," he said, "this case isn't about a marriage that grew apart over time. It's about a woman who chose selfish desires over her children's welfare and a father who's been left to pick up the pieces." The first witness was Beth herself. She took the stand with confidence, speaking clearly about her journey of self-discovery and her realization that she deserved happiness. "I never intended for things to happen the way they did," she said, "but sometimes life takes unexpected turns and you have to follow your heart." "And your heart led you to your husband's brother?" Tom asked during cross-examination. "John and I connected on a level that James and I never did. We understand each other." "You understand each other well enough to plan a move to Chicago?" Beth's composure cracked slightly. "We've discussed various possibilities for the future, including taking the children away from their father and their hometown. The girls would benefit from new experiences." "Would they benefit from being separated from their father?" "That's not what we're planning, but it's a possibility if you move to Chicago with Mr. Morrison." "I suppose it's a possibility?" Tom introduced the hotel receipts, credit card statements, and photographs documenting the affair. Beth tried to minimize the evidence, claiming she'd made mistakes but had learned from them. "How many mistakes?" Tom asked. "How many hotel rooms? How many secret meetings? How many lies told to your husband and daughters?" "I don't know the exact number. More than 10? More than 20? "I said I don't know." "But you do know that you used your family's money to pay for these mistakes." "The credit cards were in my name, too. Money earned by your husband while you were planning to leave him." Beth's lawyer objected, but the damage was done. The judge had seen the evidence, heard the admissions, witnessed Beth's inability to take full responsibility for her actions. The next witness was Candace Williams. I'd subpoenaed her testimony despite her reluctance to testify against her friend. "Mrs. Williams," Tom said, "how long have you known the plaintiff?" 25 years, since high school." "Would you say you know her well?" "Very well. She's been my closest friend." "Did Mrs. Morrison discuss her marriage problems with you?" Candace glanced at Beth, who was staring at her with a mixture of betrayal and desperation. "Yes, she did." "What did she tell you?" "She said she was unhappy, that she felt trapped, that she wanted more excitement in her life." "Did she mention John Morrison specifically?" Another glance at Beth. "Yes." "What did she say about him?" "She said he made her feel young again, made her feel desirable." "Did she express any concerns about the effect her actions might have on her daughters?" "She said the girls would understand eventually, that they'd want her to be happy." "Did she discuss her pregnancy with you?" Beth's lawyer objected, but Judge Harrison allowed the question. "Yes," Candace said quietly. "What did she tell you about the pregnancy?" "She said it was a sign that she and John were meant to be together, that it would prove to everyone that their relationship was real." "Did she express any concerns about raising a child with Mr. John Morrison?" "She said John would step up, that becoming a father would change him." "Based on your knowledge of both parties, do you believe that's likely?" Beth's lawyer objected again, and this time the judge sustained it. But the implication was clear. Even Beth's best friend had doubts about John's reliability as a partner and potential father. The final witness was Becca. She'd insisted on testifying, and I'd reluctantly agreed. She looked composed and mature as she took the oath, more adult than teenager. "Becca," Tom said gently, "can you tell the court about your home life before your mother left?" "It was normal, I guess. Dad worked a lot, but he was always there for important things. Mom was traveling more for her job, but we didn't think much of it at first." "When did you realize something was wrong?" "When Uncle John started coming around more often. He'd be there when we got home from school or when Dad was working late. It felt weird." "Weird how?" "Like he was trying to replace Dad. He'd help with homework or cook dinner, things that weren't really his job." "How did you feel when your mother left?" Becca looked directly at Beth. "Confused, hurt, like our family didn't matter to her anymore." "Do you want your mother to have custody of you and your sister?" "I want Mom to be part of our lives, but I want to stay with Dad. He's the one who's been taking care of us." What about your mother's relationship with your uncle? It's gross, Becca said bluntly. He's Dad's brother. It's like she chose the worst possible person to have an affair with. Beth was crying now, but Becca continued. And now she's having his baby, which means our family is really broken. There's no going back from that. Thank you, Becca. No further questions. Beth's lawyer tried to rehabilitate the testimony, asking Becca about happy memories with her mother, about the importance of maintaining their relationship. But the damage was done. A 17-year-old girl had just told a judge that her mother's choices were gross and had broken their family beyond repair. The closing arguments were brief. Beth's lawyer made one final plea for understanding, arguing that people make mistakes and deserve second chances. Tom Bradley summarized the evidence methodically. Affair, abandonment, pregnancy, planned relocation, financial irresponsibility. Your Honor, he concluded, the children in this case need stability, not drama. They need a parent who puts their welfare first, not someone who's still figuring out what she wants from life. Judge Harrison recessed for 30 minutes to consider her decision. I sat in the hallway with Tom, watching Beth and her lawyer huddle in urgent conversation. How do you think it went? I asked. Better than I expected. Becca's testimony was particularly effective. And the pregnancy issue? That sealed it. A woman who's pregnant with her lover's child while still married to someone else isn't going to get primary custody of 2 teenage girls. When we reconvened, Judge Harrison delivered her ruling with clinical precision. Based on the evidence presented, I find that Mrs. Morrison abandoned the family home to pursue an extramarital relationship, using marital assets to fund that relationship while neglecting her parental responsibilities. Her current living situation is unstable, and her plans for the future are uncertain. She awarded me primary physical custody of both girls, with Beth getting supervised visitation every other weekend. Beth would receive 30% of our marital assets and no spousal support, given her adultery and abandonment of the family. Furthermore, Judge Harrison continued, given Mrs. Morrison's pregnancy and her relationship with the children's uncle, I'm ordering family counseling for all parties to help navigate this unusual situation. Beth was sobbing openly now. Her lawyer put a comforting hand on her shoulder, but there was nothing more they could do. The judge's ruling was comprehensive and final. Outside the courthouse, Beth confronted me directly for the first time in weeks. Are you happy now? She demanded. You've destroyed everything. I didn't destroy anything, Beth. I just refused to let you destroy our daughters' lives. Those girls need their mother. They need a mother who puts them first. When you're ready to be that person, we can talk. And what about the baby? What about John? What about them? You made your choices. Now live with the consequences. James, please. The hearing's over, Beth. The judge has spoken. It's time for all of us to move forward. I walked away, leaving her standing on the courthouse steps with her lawyer. I felt no satisfaction in her tears, no joy in her defeat. But I felt something else. Relief. The uncertainty was over. My daughters would stay with me, in their home, with their lives intact. That evening, I cooked dinner for Becca and Brittany, helped them with homework, and tucked Brittany into bed with a story about a princess who saved herself. Normal family stuff, except now it felt precious instead of routine. Becca found me in the kitchen afterward, cleaning up the dishes. So we're staying, she said. You're staying. Good. This is where we belong. Yes, it is. What happens now? With Mom and the baby and everything? I don't know, sweetheart. But whatever happens, we'll handle it together. As a family. As a family. Later that night, I sat in my office and looked out at the town I'd called home my entire life. Millbrook wasn't perfect, but it was ours. My daughters would graduate from the same high school I'd attended, would grow up surrounded by people who cared about them, would have the stability their mother had tried to take away. Beth would have her baby with John, would build whatever life she could with a man who'd already proven his unreliability. Maybe they'd move to Chicago or Indianapolis or Nashville. Maybe John would stick around long enough to be a father. Maybe Beth would realize what she'd lost and try to rebuild her relationship with our daughters. All of that was beyond my control. What I could control was being the best father possible, providing the stability and love my girls needed, and protecting the life we'd built together. The phone rang, interrupting my thoughts. John's name appeared on the screen. I let it go to voicemail. Whatever he had to say, I didn't need to hear it. The legal battle was over, the custody issue was settled, and my family was safe. That was enough victory for one day.